A 14-year-old girl, a famous singer, an abandoned Tesla, and a secret that took 7 months to crack open. In early 2024, Celeste was reported missing. Not for the first time. Her family had filed missing persons reports before, 3 times in the final year of her life. Each time, people assumed she had run away. She was a teenager. Teenagers do that sometimes. But the people who loved Celeste knew something was different this time. She had stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped existing in any way that anyone could trace. Months went by, then a year, then more. And then on September 8th, 2025, in a tow yard in Los Angeles, workers noticed something wrong with an impounded Tesla. A smell. The kind of smell that once you recognize it, you never forget it. Inside the front trunk of that Tesla, investigators found the decomposed remains of a young girl. The car was registered to a name most people in that tow yard probably recognized, because that name was everywhere, on streaming platforms, on social media, on tour posters plastered across cities all over America. The car belonged to the singer known as D4vd.
Now, before we go further, let's talk about who D4vd actually is, because this story only makes sense when you understand just how far this young man had climbed. David Anthony Burke was 21 years old. He grew up in Texas, started making music in his bedroom, uploading tracks online when he was still a teenager himself. And then one song changed everything. Romantic Homicide. It was haunting. It was beautiful. It was the kind of track that made millions of people feel something they couldn't quite explain. The song exploded. The internet fell in love with him. Record deals followed. Tours followed. Magazine covers. Collaborations with major artists. By 2024, D4vd wasn't just a rising star. He was a star. Full stop. But somewhere behind the music, behind the tour buses and the sold-out shows, and the carefully curated social media presence, something was very, very wrong. Here is where the story starts to fracture.
Investigators piecing together the timeline after Celeste's body was found discovered something disturbing. Celeste and D4vd had been linked to each other long before she went missing. In January 2024, months before her final disappearance, the two had appeared together in a live stream on Twitch, talking, laughing, staying up into the early morning hours. And then D4vd, laughing, said something that nobody paid attention to at the time, something that later would feel like a chill running down your spine. He said, "Delete everything." Shortly after that live stream, the singer was photographed stepping out of a black Tesla just blocks from Celeste's home. Let that sink in. A 20-year-old musician, a 14-year-old girl, connected online, meeting in person, and then she vanishes. The LAPD began investigating, but for months, publicly, D4vd was not named as a suspect. He continued touring. He performed in Minneapolis the same night news broke that a body had been found in his car. His representatives said he was cooperating with authorities. The music industry moved on. His collaborators quietly pulled songs. Kali Uchis removed a track they had recorded together. Laufey pulled a collaboration without saying a word. An Olympic figure skater changed her routine. EA Sports silently removed his music from Madden NFL 26. One by one, people in the industry started creating distance, but publicly, silence.
For 7 months, the investigation moved slowly. Sealed court documents, a grand jury convened, medical examiner records locked behind a judge's order. The cause of Celeste's death kept hidden from the public, hidden from her family, hidden from the world. Her family, still grieving, still waiting, considered filing a civil lawsuit just to force the release of evidence, just to know what happened to their daughter. 7 months of silence for a family that had already spent years not knowing where their little girl was. And then, April 16th, 2026, a team of Los Angeles police officers and U.S. Marshals converged on a house on Marmont Avenue in the Hollywood Hills. A ramming device breached the door. Officers stood behind with guns drawn, and David Anthony Burke, Ford, was taken into custody, held without bail. 4 days later, The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office announced the charges: first-degree murder with special circumstances, continuous sexual acts against a minor, lewd and lascivious acts with an individual under 14 years old, and mutilation of human remains. He could face life in prison without parole or the death penalty. His attorneys immediately released a statement. They said, and these are their words, "The actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. They maintained his innocence." They said they would vigorously defend him, but here is what the
prosecutors have: digital evidence, photos, messages, a timeline reconstructed piece by piece over 7 months of investigation, a grand jury that reviewed the evidence and determined there was enough to charge him, and a family that has been waiting, not for months, not for 1 year, but for 2 years, to know what happened to their 14-year-old daughter. Celeste's family was present at the district attorney's press conference the morning the charges were announced. They didn't speak much. They didn't have to. Their presence said everything. There is something in this story that goes beyond the crime itself, something that demands to be said out loud. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was reported missing 3 times. 3 times! Her family raised alarms. They pleaded with the system to pay attention, and each time, the assumption was she ran away. She'll come back. She always comes back.
But what if the reason she kept disappearing was because she was being failed, not just by individuals, but by a system that looks at a vulnerable teenager from an immigrant family in Lake Elsinore, California, and decides she is not worth the urgency? Her body was discovered in September 2025, but she was likely dead long before that. Investigators believe she may have died as early as spring 2025, an entire year after her family last heard her voice. An entire year. The Tesla had been parked on Bluebird Avenue since late July 2025, around the time D4vd began his national tour, performing, touring, living, while a 14-year-old girl lay in the trunk of his car in a parking lot in Los Angeles. The song that made him famous was called Romantic Homicide. Sometimes reality is darker than anything any writer could invent. The trial has not yet begun. David Burke has pleaded not guilty. He is entitled to due process. He is entitled to the presumption of innocence until a jury decides otherwise. That is how the system is supposed to work, and we will watch that system work. In a courtroom, with evidence, with testimony, with whatever truth still remains to be uncovered. But Celeste Rivas Hernandez will not be in that courtroom. She will not grow up. She will not call her family. She will not post another photo or laugh with a friend or listen to a song she loves.
She was 14 years old. She deserved to be protected. She deserved to be believed. She deserved to live. Her family is still waiting to bring her home. Not to a hospital, not to a courtroom, but to a grave, a real one. A place where they can go and sit and say her name and know she is finally at rest. Because even after all of this, the investigation, the arrest, the charges, Celeste's body has never been fully laid to rest in the way a daughter deserves. That is the part of this story that should stay with you. Not the famous name, not the dramatic arrest, not the headlines. Her name, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, 14 years old, from Lake Elsinore, California. Say her name, remember her name, because she was here